back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively down here at Fadley's. I am giving away Maryland Lottery scratch-off tickets. I still have a handful of Ravens left. Roz is going to be here bringing me some holiday giveaways. Also, our friends at Goodwill, reminding everybody during the holidays, do the right thing, gather the stuff, take it to Goodwill, make sure you're shopping at Goodwill. Dan Roderick said a great thing. He's like, this holiday season, go to Goodwill and shop and buy secondhand stuff just for the environment, for the world, doing the good things. Also, our friends at Window Nation, I left my floppy hat over Costas. Maybe I'll get it back next Thursday as well. Window Nation, 866-90-NATION. You buy two, you get two free. Do what I did. But I didn't get 0% financing, but David Ettlin can. The play was Baltimore, you have no idea. Dan Roderick came on. We've been eating crab cakes down here and catching up. And there was a point, Roderick was sick of me, or he was done with me. But there was a point where I was going to try to mix the streams of old editors and old reporters and columnists and old agate clerk editorial assistants. But you were one of my spiritual godfathers at the Baltimore Sun back in the day. Your daughter worked there. You were on the other end of the newsroom all night long, closing out the night shift on the paper. And I was coming in from Hammerjacks usually. Very sober, I might add, sadly, to tell that story. But were you the night editor? What were you, David Ettlin?
Well, the finale was night Metro editor for the last 6.5 years, and probably before that, about 9 years of being a rotating editor in the counties. But the real key was 25 years on Rewrite. And that's telephone journalism. Breaking news happens, and nobody's there to cover it. You're either going to send a reporter out, and you're going to take the notes from them by phone, or you're going to make the calls and find out what happened. And on rare occasions, the night editor will just sit there and you'll run out and cover it yourself because there's nobody else left to do it. And when there was a major catastrophe, like the famous Howard Street tunnel fire, where a train carrying hazardous cargo derailed under Howard Street.
Or the accident over in Chase that night. I was at the paper that night, the train wreck.
The Chase train wreck. Then you'll have multiple reporters doing a story, and the person on Rewrite or somebody on Rewrite will be the poor soul that's got to put everything together and write the main story. And that's the challenge on deadline.
The 1 dot, the 2 dot, the chaser, the final, right?
Yeah, back when the paper was so large and had so many papers being printed that they had time to make changes from edition to edition.
I mean, it's been a little while since we've said this. Stop the presses, right?
Well, not that, but sometimes it's slow them down so we can make a change.
David Ettlin was how many years? 30, 40? How many years did you do this?
40, almost to the day.
Okay, so 39 and some change. Down to 501 North Calvert, then down to Port Covington. When did you leave the paper?
2007. They were offering buyouts. And
I'm familiar with that concept.
Yeah, and the last buyout, I was worried that there wouldn't be another one because I was coming up on my 40th anniversary. And I got back from a vacation in Japan with my wife and heard there was going to be a buyout. And it took effect. The last day at the paper for anybody was actually my 40th anniversary at the paper. And I said, it's like they wrote my name on it. But the reality was they had not. They wanted 50 jobs out of the building. And my job was not on the list. So I said, well, what happens if I ask for a buyout? They said, well, if we don't get 50 jobs, maybe you'll get it. And in the end, 48 people said they wanted to go. And they had 2 slots left. They laid off one person, and I was the 50th. And I was out the door with a year's pay and benefits.
15 years ago.
Yeah, well.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the math. Just about 15.
Wow. So I got to the paper on January the 6th, 1986. Jack Gibbons hired me. I was 17 years old, 17 years and 3 months old. My parents had to sign a special permission slip for me to join the Baltimore-Washington Newspaper Guild because I wasn't old enough to vote. I wasn't old enough to – I was a minor, you know. So that was kind of the fun part for me. I came into that newsroom and I was so – I had a card that said the Baltimore Sun on it, the Evening Sun on it, and I was just so thrilled to be there. I was 17 years old. And I think to this day, one of the reasons that you can't BS me is because all I did was live my life being challenged by editors saying, is that true? Is that right? Can we put our reputation on it? It says Baltimore Sun. It's got to be true. It's got to be a fact. It's got to be real. You can't make things up here other than the lottery numbers, which I apologize for because I always screwed those up. Got called into Jack Lemon's office by screwing up the lotto numbers back in the 80s, which is kind of the inside track of how I'm sponsored by the lottery. I always joke with John Martin about that. But for me, back in the day, it was like Willy Wonka to me. To put the paper out every night, to be there on the night that Len Bias perished, to be there on the night the Challenger exploded, to be there on the night that the Chase, and this is all in the first year. This is all 1986 things I'm telling you about, right? I'll never forget that, but people like you were so memorable to me because I felt like I could learn something from you. You know what I mean? I really, everybody in that newsroom was a teacher and a mentor to me at 17 years of age, teaching me the right way to be a reporter,
Well, I got in a different route. I had been a supermarket cashier. I had been the store announcer at EJ Corvette for about 6 weeks until I got fired by a floor manager because I wouldn't give him
blue light special. We got a pickup on aisle 3.
Hey,
is that what you did?
We're having a 15-minute special on admirable televisions.
It wasn't called the blue light. You didn't work at Kmart.
It was one of my great bloopers, admirable televisions instead of admiral. But, then I was an office boy for the Baltimore Symphony for about a month and a half. And then I got sick, and I said, you need somebody. The season's about to open. I can't handle this job right now. So I left there, and I was unemployed. My then wife was reading the help wanteds in the Baltimore Sun, and there was an advertisement for a communications.
But where else would you get a gig other than going to the newspaper to get a job in 1980? What year was this?
It was in 1967.
67?
Yeah, in June.
That would be 40 plus.
June 1st, 1967.
Before I was born,
I got hired.
Ettlin. I can't believe this.
Well, anyway, the job was working in the wire room, full-time job. I was a student at Towson State College then, learning how to be a teacher. and I needed a job, and this was full-time gig in the wire room, which meant basically being the handmaid to teletype machines that were bringing in news from all over the world. And
the little paper with the little rivets on the side?
Yeah, race results,
right.
Play-by-play from the West Coast baseball games, and the clickety-clack noise.
That was it. I remember that.
And every now and then a big story would come in, and bells would start ringing on the A-wire, which was the big one. That's where the main
plane
news comes
crashed,
in.
right?
And when you started hearing that bell, you'd holler out in the newsroom and say, there's something big coming in. And
Nixon's getting indicted, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. And then,
Man on the Moon, you were there for this stuff, right?
Yeah, the copy boy would come over and grab it and take it to whatever basket I put it in, national, foreign, whatever.
Just like all the president's men.
Yeah. So if there was major news, that was it. And I did that for all of 10 weeks. And at the end of 10 weeks, I had to go back to school full time, and it was going to be a strange year training.
What kind of teacher were you going to be, Dave Ettlin?
I was going to specialize in urban education. I was in a Ford Foundation program in my senior year training inner city teachers. And for the full year of my senior year, I was going to be teaching full-time and taking 22 credits a semester, all related to classroom experience of teaching poor kids in rough neighborhoods.
See, this is why the city's not as... Had you gone on that path, teaching teachers, maybe... the world would be a better place.
No, it would have been horrible because I was a terrible teacher.
But you were a hell of an editor. David Ettlin is here. I saw you, and this comes honest, right? Like last Friday night, my wife had been sick. And I told this story with Dan early on, but I'll tell it again. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. My wife was getting a haircut, and I didn't get tickets for Dan's thing. Dan was supposed to do the show at Pappas last month when Mike Bordick came out and David Steele came out. He got jury duty. Never told me what the play was about. I was kind of bought in on wanting to do it. Then my wife got sick, and I didn't have tickets, and I thought, well, I'll see at the end. Maybe there'll be tickets or whatever. Dan's like sold out, and I'm like, uh-oh. That afternoon, I put a little thing on his Facebook, and I said, if anybody's got 2 extra tickets, my wife's feeling better, because she had been in bed sick as a dog. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, most of Wednesday, kind of sat up a little bit. And she didn't want to be coughing in the theater. That's what she's like, I don't want to be in the theater coughing. I'm going to put a mask on. So she coughed into the mask, but 4:30, we get tickets. 5 o'clock, we're there. And then I walked into that play. As the lights went down, I didn't see anybody in. I went up. Don Scott was sitting 5 feet away from me, just like at the Ravens games. But that show, I didn't know what to expect. And then I saw you afterward, which didn't shock me that you would be there, given your relationship with Dan. You probably didn't shock you that I was there, right? Tell our audience about that, because I think that would be the travelogue of your life at the paper. Like you saw the reality and probably the way I did of being a reporter and the way it was a magical show. It really was.
Yeah. Well, it was a magical experience working for a major city newspaper. I was lucky. I mean, I went in the back door. I did my job as a communications clerk. I was going to have to leave the paper. And there was a guy named Charlie Whiteford who covered state politics. He was the main political writer for the paper. And he took a liking to me in the wire room for some reason. And he tipped me off that there was going to be an opening on the Morning Sun city desk, part-time, weekends only, editorial assistant. And it was perfect.
Same job I had.
It was 3 shifts from Friday night through Sunday night, 24 hours of work, and it's what I needed to pay the rent because I was a young married guy at 19 and, it was like, 20 years old, and I needed to pay the rent. So I get that job instead. And for a year and a quarter, I worked hard on the city desk at night, making police calls, leaving memos for people coming in the next morning about what dropped on the gutter somewhere in Baltimore overnight.
Well, Dick Irwin would always come over in the middle of the night. He would leave your side of the room, come over, and he would just sit down and pull his glasses down and he'd say, "There's a white male in blue jeans with a white top, driving a late model domestic vehicle."
I loved working with Dick Irwin. I mean, he started at the News American. When the News American folded, they brought Police Blotter and Dick Irwin to the Evening Sun. When the Evening Sun eventually got murdered by the company, and they just focused on the morning paper.
I was part of that attrition.
We ended up with Police Blotter in the morning paper, and I was editing that as night editor, and it was just wonderful.
Dick Irwin, one of the
great little vignettes. I mean, the time somebody had a burglary and their TV was stolen and told the police that there were roaches in the TV. And it was like, the place was full of roaches.
Well, Dan wrote such great stories, right, about that into the play and how quirky Baltimore is and what it's like really to be a reporter and to get a phone call in the middle of the night from anyone that says, "I have a story," right?
One of his great little stories, which he mentioned in the show, was the guilty but mostly stupid kind of crimes. And one of them was a case that actually was in my Pasadena neighborhood at the Union, what was then the Union Trust Company, night deposit box. And some crazy local guys with a pickup truck and too much beer decided, hey, let's just break into the bank vault. We can just pull the night deposit drawer off. So they tied the bumper to the handle of the night deposit and started to drive away. And instead of the night deposit door ripping open, the bumper came off the back of the truck with their license tag.
And they didn't come back and take the license tag off.
And now it's a Wells Fargo branch, and I've long thought that they really needed to have a historical marker there of one of the stupidest crimes ever committed.
Well, they have cameras now.
Yeah,
so like
now, not then.
David Ettlin is here, longtime editor. What do I call you? Night editor, desk editor?
Well, I was the night Metro editor, but more than that.
Were you the horn, the shoe, or what were the names we had there? The slot? We had names like that, right?
Well,
the pivot? We had that on the sports desk.
Night Metro editor was not a whole lot different than Rewrite. I was still basically massaging stories, trying to make them better, trying to help young reporters learn how to turn a phrase, and also to do it in a hurry on deadline. And that's not everybody can do that.
I'm making it sound sexier than it is, though, right?
Well,
it's like making soup. It tastes good, but you just got you're making it's not all that much fun.
When I was a lowly wire room clerk, the only newspaper I'd ever worked for before that was at Baltimore Junior College, which of course now is Baltimore City Community College. I worked on the college crier for all 5 semesters it took me to get through a 4-semester academic program, because basically I spent so much time in the newspaper office and writing stupid stories for that paper. But I found I really liked newspapers. It was fun.
I love it.
And then I ended up working at the Baltimore Sun in the wire room, looking out from a little kind of like this long, narrow room that had all the teletype machines. And there were these reporters out there walking around who got their names in the paper every day. They got paid to write. And I thought, wow, that's just amazing.
I never considered any other life other than that when I was a kid. My dad, the day my dad died in July of 1992. And my dad died angry at me because I had left the paper. I took the buyout January 15th of 92. And my dad had, dementia at the end to a large degree, but was very angry at me because he's like, you'd have a job the rest of your life. You'll get a gold watch. And I'm thinking to myself, I made a good decision leaving the paper. I knew that because Stedman told me, Senor, you'll never regret it. Don't look back, Senor. That's what he said to me in 1992. But I have such And I tell the banner people this is, people doing the digital paper. I do a digital paper at Baltimore Positive as well. There was something about that experience that really shaped everything about my life. You, Dan, Jack Gibbons, Mike Marlowe, Bob Nussgar. I mean, all those people that I worked with. At 54 now, I'm a better person because I did that. Really, I mean, because I worked there. It was an amazing educational experience for the rest of it was my college. Really.
It was a thrill to do what we did. And it was the heyday of newspapers. Things were going well. They were making lots of money. They had 9 foreign bureaus.
They could afford us.
We had reporters as far away as Beijing. And sometimes you'd get calls from those places, and calls weren't cheap in those days. But calls would come in, and somebody was in a hurry, and they had to dictate a story, and you'd be on the other end typing with 2 fingers as fast as you could go, because I never learned to type. That was another little secret.
You didn't type?
No, I typed with 2 fingers. Such a boop, 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 boop,
We would call that to Christopher Columbus, to seek and look for. That's what we used to call it.
I call it discover a key and then land on it. But yeah, that's the Columbus system.
Am I hallucinating, or did I wake up in Christchurch, New Zealand on the South Island to some Facebook message where you had friends there or something? Is that correct?
Probably.
Yeah. You have people all over the world. You and your wife traveled extensively.
Yeah, my late wife, she died almost 2 years ago.
Heart to you as always.
And we tried to have big vacations. And one of the reasons I wanted to take a buyout from the paper in 2007 was they were leaning on management people to take a vacation every 3 months, take a week off, stay fresh. And you can't go anywhere in the world for just a week. How do you go to Australia and New Zealand for a week?
Can't.
How do you go to Europe for a week? How do you get in your car and do a cross-country road trip for a week? It's just impossible. And what we needed was big adventures. In the summer, kids would go off to camp, and we could go and do something thrilling. And that was it. The
favorite place?
That's hard to say. We went to Japan twice.
Japan.
We had friends all over Japan. My wife, as a teacher, was selected to go to Japan, courtesy of the Japanese government, for 3 weeks and learn about their educational system and bring back a little of Japanese culture to her classroom experience at George Fox Middle School in Pasadena.
Did you teach them how to eat with chopsticks?
Well, no, but...
That's the most important thing you can do to any young person other than teach a second language is teach chopsticks. Because I'm missing a finger.
Yeah.
Roz is here, by the way, from the Maryland line. You're going to do next segment. I hope you get some call, get some Rofo, get ready. So I'm in Beijing, China, in 2007 with Cal Ripken. John Maroon knows this story. And my wife and I broke off from the State Department because we were there on official. I'm a journalist. My wife and I got in a taxi. We went to a regular place. The place was called Bellagio. We found it in the Mobile Travel Guide back in 2007. And I went in, and we ordered off the menu. We didn't even know what we ordered. And they brought the food, and they brought chopsticks. And I'm missing a finger. I lost my finger when I was 3 years old. And I didn't really know how to eat with chopsticks at all. And I was trying to express, and my Mandarin's not so good. And I said, I finger, and they're like, oh, no problem. We'll be right back. And they come back. They brought me toothpicks to eat my soup with. And at that point, I made a commitment to my wife. I'm like, look, I'm a grown man. At some point, I'm going to need to learn to eat with chopsticks. And part of it is like anything else that you do and you learn in life. You fumble, you fall, you stumble, you pick up food and it falls or whatever. But I have learned to eat with chopsticks now, and I consider it one of the great accomplishments of my adulthood.
I'm very clumsy at it. That's why I like sushi. You can pick it up with your fingers.
But that's what I'm saying. Everybody's clumsy until you learn. You have to work at it. It's like editing. It's like which takes the comma and that does not. I got taught all that stuff.
But anyway, the best places, I don't know.
Japan?
I love New Zealand and I love Japan. But we also traveled across Europe. We did it by car a couple of times. 6 countries in a 3-week period.
Drive fast in Germany? Did you do that?
Yeah, 110 miles on an Autobahn and caught a rock on the windshield.
Nobody goes to Germany and doesn't come back without talking about driving there,
100 miles an hour in Italy on throughways and
Well, I would say this. You have
little
been
stupid cars.
You have been as big a supporter and your late wife of my wife and my wife's battle, and you've actually met Niels. Niels is coming over a week from Wednesday to Boston, touring all of New England with my wife. Twin sister, I might add. So shout out to Niels and Franzi. So Niels is going to be here for Christmas. So
I
there.
think he's a wonderful guy.
Germany, man.
Talk about heroes.
Well, he's really bumming about the whole World Cup thing. Germany did do so well in the World Cup. David Ettlin is here. He's in retirement. I usually plug my guest and plug their book and plug their Twitter and all that. Leave Ettlin alone, man. He's enjoying himself.
Well, I got to plug.
Go ahead, plug away. What are you plugging? What are we doing other than crab cakes?
I'm plugging my wife.
Oh, well,
She wrote 6 self-published books, including a memoir that was finished 3 weeks before she died, and I ended up doing the editing and publishing it after she was gone. But there's a book that's available as an ebook and through Amazon for a ridiculous $50 because it's just a thick book full of color pictures. She was a photographer and writer as well as a teacher, and the book is called 365 Gifts on Turning 70. And it was a book that was a full year of looking at each day and the gift that day brought. No matter how terrible the day might have been, there was always something good to be written about. And she illustrated each one with a photo. And she wrote it as a blog initially. Every day she would post a blog on her Journeys site. And then at the end she decided this needs to be a book. So she put it together and self-published it. And it's available on Amazon. And it's an inspiring thing because you really do need to look at every day as a gift. It's a magical thing if you look for it, that there are wonderful, wonderful things happening. And you just have to appreciate them and savor them because life is just terrific.
Hey, man, thank you for that. That's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment.
And her
I knew you would give me something beautiful because you're a writer.
And her name is Bonnie Schupp, S-C-H-U-P-P. And
365
365 gifts.
Gifts. Well, if I hit that on Amazon, I'll find it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to find it right now.
365 gifts.
I'm going to do it, and I'm going to hold it up right now just because I want to. 365 gifts, and I'll just put Bonnie in, B-O-N-N-I-E.
Yep.
And there it is. Bonnie Schupp, there it is. Gifts on turn. It's the first thing that pops up. So do it. Go buy it. You can get the ebook. It says $6.99.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's affordable. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to you.
Thank you, Nestor. It was great.
David Ettlin, my one-time night editor, father figure, mentor, crazy-ass uncle in the newsroom down at 501. Is that okay? Did I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. North Calvert Street. I think he likes that. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery in conjunction with our friends at Goodwill and Window Nation. We're giving away some scratch-offs down here. I'm getting some holiday scratch-offs. There you go. All right. There you go.
Like
you 18 or older?
Yeah.
I'm just making
yeah,
sure.
I'm
I got to do
so.
do all the legal and do all that stuff. We're at Fadley's right now. They're shipping crab cakes down here that are as delicious. You can go all over the world. You're not going to get a Fadley's crab cake anywhere but Fadley's. So you can ship this here. Damie's going to be joining us in a couple of minutes as well. And Roz is here. I've been Maryland Lottery sponsor 2 years now, and I've been trying to get Roz down here, trying to get her hubby, Greg from Northeast down here. But I'm going to give her a proper crab cake. We're going to have a little talk here about the Maryland Lottery and about holiday giveaways and do's and don'ts, like what I just did. Don't be giving that to the grandkids, Ettlin. I'm Nestor. We are WNST. We are Baltimore Positive. We're down at Fadley's at the Old Market. Stay with us.